Welcome to the Local Marketing Source Weekly Update, brought to you by LocalMarketingSource.com.
This week's Local Marketing Update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter @ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/ScottPGallagher.
Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Gallagher here with Local Marketing Source, bringing you our weekly local marketing industry update. Now, next week's LMS member call is going to be Wednesday, February 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes, as well as our channel on YouTube. Well, anybody that was live on the call last week, I apologize that I wasn't here. I had prepared for the call and just got tied up. And thankfully, I've got the support and the backup, and I hope you had I hope you enjoyed listening to Ian Sorensen. He is my project manager over at my agency, One Marketing. And Ian has been with me for quite some time and is definitely understanding what we're trying to accomplish for local businesses. I know he got into some questions and whatnot, so it was hope you guys had fun and had a little bit of a different flair. We have interviewed Ian in the past, and you can actually go and watch that video inside the LMS portal. We did record it and whatnot. Next week, I've got some exciting things that I don't want to share with you just yet. I've got a couple of things in the fire working on right now. And I'll be able to share that with you next week. But we will be announcing in the LMS Facebook group as well as through email, inviting you guys to some of the stuff that I've got going on. But it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a good week next week. But this week for our weekly update and our overview, we're going to talk about something called Locale-Adaptive web pages and Google indexing those. And on that transition, a discussion about websites that are mobile and adaptive to the particular size. And I want to separate the difference of what we're talking about for local adaptive sites and dynamic websites. We're also going to talk about creating additional content for local SEO and distribution of that content, some tips on creating some of that content, and i.e. utilizing different presentations, slide presentations, and how they can be used for local businesses, and you can really leverage that exposure, that content exposure. I'm just going to take a quick look to see if there's any questions that we got for any new LMS students that we have on the line. We're using GoToWebinar software, and you can go ahead and just raise your hand at any time or type questions in the question box, and we will get off to you. I do see actually there's some different names in here today. That's nice to see. Nick's back as well. Nick, I don't think we've seen you around for a couple of weeks on the calls, well, a few weeks actually, but I could be wrong. Nonetheless, welcome if you are new. All right. First week back on deck. That's what Nick says. Nick is over in New Zealand. Nick has been a student for quite some time, and I really like Nick's story. I'll just quickly share that with anybody that's on the line right now. But I know when Nick started out, he was flustered and frustrated, and essentially he ended up getting into the corporate world, not fully growing his agency to where he wanted it to be, I guess to say, and gained some experience in the corporate world and came back, and now he's kicking butt as running his own business, and hopefully he's building and living his dream. But what's nice about his story is, you come back and you push a second time, and sometimes it takes that. I always make a comment, I've got 10 failures before I have one success, and that's the truth in business. Entrepreneurs are definitely have a higher element of risk taking, no matter what it may be. For those people that might want to become an entrepreneur or have thought about becoming an entrepreneur, you could look at yourself and see how much of a risk taker you are. Go around and look at your friends, and I can think of all my friends and just how they live their lives, some of the stuff that they do, where they go out and how they go out, and assess how much risk that they're willing to take. And sure enough, the people that generally take higher risks are those that have worked or work for themselves, and support common goals of the small entrepreneur. So, I don't want to hear that, Nick. He's telling me, he says it's 32 degrees here right now. Well, for anybody in America, 32 degrees, well, that's exactly freezing. That would be 0 Celsius, but that's 32 Fahrenheit. And that's, 64, 90 degrees. That's like 90, 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Damn, that's warm. Well, we're wintertime here. I know you're indulging in your summertime. And you know what, Nick? I was just thinking about you. I've been on a kick the last 3 or 4 days watching videos from, I think it's called the Rotura, or there's a town called Rotura or something, ROT. And I've been watching videos of the Skyline, the Skyline race, and some of the skiing that's there. And man, it's pretty awesome. I'm definitely gonna go there. So you're that close to the beach, huh? He's like 50 feet from the beach. Damn. But you got to work hard to play hard. All right, so we're going to talk about Google indexing what is called local adaptive web pages. All right. Now, don't confuse this with local dynamic web pages. And what dynamic web pages are is a web page that ultimately scales, and it changes the placement and the type of content based off of the display device. Well, this is essentially the same thing, that you are choosing to display certain information based off of parameters. In other words, the web pages become adaptive based off of those parameters. And those parameters could be time, the time of day. They could be IP-based or geo-IP-based based off of location. So if you're serving a different audience, for example, a Spanish audience here in Chicago, we'll say that the web page would then display Spanish content based off of certain parameters as opposed to English, whether it's for geolocation or language dependent type of content. So now Google has publicly come out and said that they support the crawling and indexing of local adaptive web pages, as well as dynamically changing web pages based off of the display device. Now, this was a black hat. I remember back in 2006, there was a black hat technique that we could utilize, and it was squashed real quickly, where you would show different information to a search engine than you would a user. And obviously, that's not what we're talking about here. You're not showing different information to a search engine. It's based specifically off the location, and it's in the code. And the search engine is going to be able to see that HTML code based off of the location that's being sent. All right, we're also going to talk about, SEO for local businesses is really just marketing. It's all about creating content and distributing that content. And far too often, I'm frequently hearing, link counts and a lot of different metrics that are involved in SEO that just really aren't that important. And those raise the red flag. The moment somebody mentions tools, I know that there's some tools out there that are very good, but we've got to take a big picture at everything here. And when you take a step back and recognize, well, really, what are the search engines trying to do? Now, I'm going to raise a term in SEO that you probably haven't heard of in SEO, but I'm going to go on the record right now and predict that in the next 5 years, we're going to see this term inside of SEO. It's an important thing. It's kind of where I'm trying to wrap my head around and get an understanding of this. When you're watching what's going on at the Consumer Electronics Show every year, this has been one of the most exciting years. I'm actually disappointed I never had a chance to make it. But there's many different industries that are dancing around this topic I'm going to talk about. And our industry itself is also dancing around this topic. And we're going to see all of this come together. And that's the discussion of artificial intelligence. And, going all the way back to, the books of 1984, artificial intelligence is something that man has been talking about for decades and decades. and there's a lot of scarcity about it. And, when we start to look at predictions, there's a lot of experts that are saying right now that by the year 2030, that's only 15 years away. That's not really that big of a deal. When I look, I'm 40 years old. I think back, I have great memories from 20 years ago and 30 years ago. 15 years is not a long time. I'm not 40 yet. I will be this year. Wow. But just this notion, in 15 years, they say that nobody in the United States will be allowed to drive on highways, period, because cars will be doing it. And to have that, there's got to be an element of artificial intelligence. So with artificial intelligence talking on a search engine level, well, we've seen some of that a little bit already when we talk about personalized search. But there's really a whole new wave of data that's now coming out, especially when we see a lot of the tracking features on the paid side and the segmentation for Facebook and signing up. The amount of data is just ridiculous. Look at, I go doing a search on Google now, and boom, it tells me what shows I'm going to, what concerts are coming up that I'm signed up to and times, and maps it all out. Google is really trying to figure out, what am I searching for next? And that's really what the premise of Google Now is. If you don't know much about Google Now, it is something time to start reading about it, but that's exactly what Google Now is trying to accomplish, is give you the answers before you ask the question. Well, in order to accomplish that, that's artificial intelligence. And really, what is artificial intelligence trying to replicate? It's just trying to replicate human behavior. That's it, right? That's really all that artificial intelligence means, is replicate human behavior. So on that note, and thinking of that fashion, what are the search engines really trying to do? Well, they're just trying to replicate human behavior. And so how they go about it, and all the different 10,000 factors that they're looking at, and all the different metrics, they're trying to weigh a balance and a scale here to determine, well, what can we look at that's going to give us the best information to really replicate what humans are doing? So us as marketers, no matter what angle we look at the algorithm, and I'm giving you a very different perspective than I have in the past, but the principles are identical. That regardless, we're just trying to mimic what human beings are doing and have done. And so marketing by definition is creating content that is going to be consumed by a society and an audience of that consortium, of that business. So we're trying to create material, and we're trying to put it where people are going to read it. Well, where are people going to read it? On the internet, and that, or see it, or listen to it, or watch it, or view it. And how are people, one day computers that are going to have retina scanning, they're going to know where we're looking at on a web page and what we're particularly reading. Well, that data is going to be more relevant in the algorithm than shares or likes. But today, that's the metric that the search engines are looking at. So they're constantly changing metrics based off of environment and technology. And I'm a hockey fan, and 2015 is one of the most exciting years for hockey in terms of technology. The technology that is now just this year involved in it, and all sports actually are going to change dramatically in the next 5 years with the data that we're going to be able to collect from every single different movement of it's going to be ridiculous. Throw that stuff in algorithms and you tweak it. Well, it's exciting. So artificial intelligence, constantly trying to mimic what human beings are doing. And, just getting out into the community and understanding, well, how, I look at my local newspaper, for example. I could go to the degree of saying, all right, well, the newspaper industry as a standard has declined by, I'm going to pull this number out of the air, by 80% in the last decade. But my local newspaper's revenue has only declined by 60% in the last decade. Well, they're not shrinking as fast as others. What does that say about my community? Maybe our community is a little more old school and trying to get content into print form. So as we create this content, of course, we need to be able to have this content readable by the search engines and whatnot. We just got a new client recently, and they showed us their new website. We look at it and go, geez, that's a nice looking website. And then boom, we try to make it 10 inches for a tablet, and everything gets all out of whack. It's no good for a phone. So it doesn't have a mobile standard. Even though it was a dynamic website, it just was not dynamically working. In addition to that, the whole website was built by their graphic designer. It looks beautiful, but there isn't a single word. It's all images. Well, search engines just can't read that stuff. Not only that, images that change in size. Well, when you go down to a mobile level and you have an image that's at a desktop size and you shrink it down to a mobile size, so does that text. Well, you need text. 12-point text is 12-point because that's a good size to read. You still need 10 to 12-point text on your mobile device as well as your desktop. So text size generally is not scalable. These are some things as marketers we got to think about when we're creating particular content. So, one thing that is often overlooked are presentations. And I want to talk a little bit about presentations. For example, I'll do presentations for my agency, and I will invite local businesses, and I will take that presentation and record it. Now, when I record my screen and I record my audio, I now have a video that I can go and upload to YouTube. I can take that video and put it into my email autoresponder. So anytime I have people that sign up, I'm driving traffic on a consistent basis to that video. As long as that video is continually being watched, it's going to be in the YouTube algorithm or ecosystem, and the algorithm ultimately likes videos that have constant flow of traffic and likes. I'm going to take that video and put it on my blog. I now have a blog post that I have availability to it. With that, I may take the content from each of the slides and make them available for download or available on my blog. I now have some additional content with that. I take my recording and I get it transcribed. You could utilize software to transcribe it or pay somebody. It's about $1 a minute to get something transcribed. You now have a 12 to 15 page document for a presentation that you put together with a slide. You could take that and put that and utilize it into your autoresponder. You can propagate it through social media and little excerpts, have a blog post, or take that exact presentation and offer it to a theme-related site, such as an industry-based site, as a unique piece of content for them. And now you have exposure back. And what's beautiful about it when you do this from presentations, inside of presentations, inside the PowerPoint, you're going to have your citations, you're going to have your naps in there, and you're going to have links. In other words, exposure. So creating presentations are a great source to start for a piece of content, because from that piece of content, you can get videos, you can get articles. Based off of those videos and articles, you can create a press release from it to release the actual content and have a campaign around that presentation. You effectively, because you're doing a presentation that's discussing of the topics, such as, in my case, working with chiropractors, we're going to talk about conditions and symptoms. Symptoms being knee pain, back pain, joint pain, headaches, fatigue. And when you talk about that aspect, those are now keywords that are getting into your content that are based off of symptoms in this case. And then, of course, you're going to offer the solutions, which are a discussion of the conditions Well, those are also main keywords to be searched for. And within those solutions of the conditions is going to be your treatment. Well, that's your services that you provide. And so you could see how to create a high quality presentation for somebody, you're providing the education to them, you're addressing their concerns, so alleviating their pain, you're discussing the benefits, that's how it's going to make their lives better or make them feel better and whatnot. And yet, by effectively creating a content, and when you are talking about the benefits for somebody, you're going to say to yourself, well, who am I talking to? Well, maybe I'm talking to women between the ages of 25 and 40. So you're going to use content and dialogue that's going to resonate with them. In other words, the article is going to be more specific and enjoyable. And then with that, you are actually getting your keywords into it. So keep in mind, as we talked about before, don't use images or text inside of images on these presentations. Make sure you optimize your slides when you create your presentation to have all of the effective conditions, symptoms, or in the case of, like, say, a pizza delivery company, the benefits of the pizza and the quality aspects of, what, what makes them different. Definitely links to be able to share your presentation inside the presentation and outside of the presentation if you're going to host on a site like SlideShare or whatnot. Definitely make the slides, the PowerPoint available, because those are all readable and available for download. Create your video as mentioned. And finally, from some of this content, you can in turn make some infographics based off of your presentation. Infographics are great as a standalone to add to a blog post and ultimately do get shared. So yeah, there's some tips for the day. There really wasn't a lot to update on, not a lot in the news for local this week. So I really enjoyed that tip and thought that's you guys were going to get some value from that. But I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, I guess that's it. Nick wrote, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Rotorua. That's probably it. Yeah, because I have some kick-ass slide. You sit on this thing. Oh, it just looks so much fun. All right, I'll be back in 30 seconds, guys.
Thanks for watching the Local Marketing Industry Update. We've got these things coming out every single week, so if you liked with what you heard, just click the button right above me right here to subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to get a little bit more, right over here, go check out localmarketingsource.com. We've got free reports that you can grab. You can even register for a free marketing course to get in and see the portal. Or just go ahead and follow us on some of the social channels. We'll be around. Until next time.